Welcome, gentlemen, to this week's session with our awesome neural reprogramming coach, Milan. Always exciting. And actually, today I'm pretty excited because Milan is going to be speaking about something that I don't think I'm aware of. So, today we're going to be talking about the power of perception, specifically perceptual positions. So, I'm going to keep my mouth shut and let's listen to the expert. So, Milan, I got some questions for you here. What are perceptual positions?
Well, JK, you probably heard that old saying, before you criticize someone, walk a mile in his shoes. So
Yes.
basically, this is it. This is all about understanding someone else's experience and also our experience from a different angle. Our ability to change camera angles or tune into a different radio station, if you will, to observe things from different perspective. So this is all about perceptual positions, and there are three main ones that we should talk about today. The first one is, of course, first position, looking through our own eyes as if things are happening right now, living it fully associated, experiencing life as it is. So that is the first position. The second one is the position of other. So that's the one when we say step into someone else's shoes. So when we are there, we are observing things from someone else's perception point of view, the way they are thinking, feeling, or noticing things. Now, here's the very interesting thing about the second position. It doesn't have to be a man. It doesn't have to be a human at all. The second position, we can do it for pretty much anything. It can be a painting on a wall. It can be a mythical being. It can be a mathematical equation. Um, it can be a tree. Doesn't matter. We can all take that second perspective, a second position, to increase our access to additional information about a specific situation or event. That is the second position. And the third one is the perception out of those two. So it's basically a bird's point of view where you are able to see the first and the second position and being completely detached, like a friendly visitor out of space. Like, oh, what am I doing here? And let's see what's going on. So these are the main three perceptual positions, and they are very useful when it comes to learning and understanding what's going on in this whole system.
Okay, that is excellent. Thank you for explaining that. So we have looking through our own eyes, we have looking from the position of others. And the interesting thing you said here is that it doesn't have to be another human being. It could be an object, it could be a work of art, but it's actually, could you talk a little bit about that? Sounds a little strange. I know the last one is bird's eye view.
Mhm.
Let's take a step back to the second one. Like, how would someone do that?
Yeah, well, you have to basically what it says, when you step in someone else's shoes, when you already let's say you wanna understand how are things from the perspective of a tree in a park. Yeah,
Mm,
so you start observing that tree, you see, and you can imagine it has roots. You see the size of the tree, the leaves, how they're moving, and so on. It's all about feeling, seeing, and noticing. So you imagine that you are the tree. And how would you feel if you have all those branches, if you have all these deep
mm.
roots, if you are kind of swinging gently in the air, how you feel the sun on your leaves and on the skin of the wood, right? So what is it like, to be in the park and so on? That can give us quite a lot of useful information and maybe perhaps develop a more respect for things in nature, especially when we have ideas about what is the function of the tree, how is providing shade, how is providing more oxygen, how is very useful to hold the ground still, and so on.
Okay. All right. That makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of people can find that helpful, especially people who are,
Mhm.
I like the example of, especially if we care about the environment. and we're trying to do something about the environment, it's helpful to a certain extent to be able to see things, quote unquote, from the environment's perspective. Okay,
And
so
when it comes to,
mm,
sorry for interrupting,
no
when it
worries.
comes to reboot, for example, well, the second position can be, a part of our mind, a part of our body as well. So if we have that negative self-talk that we were talking about, we can take the perspective of that negative self-talk and get more understanding why is it there, what is the positive function behind that negative self-talk, what is trying to protect us from, and so on. And by developing more understanding, we create more a stronger rapport with
Mm.
that part of ourselves, and then we are able to negotiate and create changes for ourselves.
Very good. It reminds me of one of or some of the exercises we have that involve dialoguing with different sub personalities that we have within us that maybe might be responsible for some of our urges. But before we get there, with that being said, the reboot program is literally about rebooting your life and transforming it. What would be the importance of developing? I consider this a skill. What would be the importance of developing the skill of perception?
Well, the better perception we have,
Mm.
that will help us encounter all of our projections out there. And once we are conscious of our projections, well, we are able to deal with them.
What do
Well,
you
and
mean by, sorry, what do you mean by, I'm sorry to interrupt. What do you mean by projections?
mhm. Because we don't perceive reality as it is. Yeah, we
Mm,
perceive certain information. Some people say that we receive like 11 million of information at the moment, but we
mm.
perceive only like 124 at a
Oh,
time.
gotcha.
And when it comes to our senses, we filter that to all of our values, beliefs, and other filters that we have inside.
Hmm.
And once we have that, we have internal representation of what is going on the outside. And according to our mind and
Hmm.
what kind of state of mind we are in at that moment, we're going to project that idea on the outside to make sense out of it. So we might judge people because of that projection, and projection will come from our point of view.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Yeah. Thank you for explaining that. So it's basically
So
the way that we see things internally, and then our translation of that creates what we see in front of us. But
exactly,
that may not be reality because everybody has their own perception and everyone is projecting their own internal state on the same
exactly.
object that we're all looking at.
If we are in a bad state, we're gonna see bad things. If we're in a good state, we're gonna see great things, opportunities, and so on. So, but when we recognize our negative projections, then we are able to change them. When that happens, well, our perception change, and we are able to move forward to make better results, create better outcomes, and so on.
Okay, excellent. No, so this is really good. Now that we've gotten a good perspective of this, Milan, could you bring it closer home? So, for
Mhm.
men who are trying to improve their lives, who are trying to develop themselves, who are trying to reboot, how would these perceptual positions help them in their development?
First, they need to realize disadvantages of being stuck in a certain perceptual position. So, for example, if we are always in the first position, we are only thinking about ourselves. We can come across as selfish. We might not consider what other people, we actually would not know what other people feel. And also,
Mm,
we couldn't be aware of the consequences of our actions. So that is the first position. When we are stuck in the second position, we can become easily a doormat, because we are putting everyone else first before our feelings, what we think is right or wrong, and so on. we put everybody else in front of us, and that can also create huge disadvantages when it comes to achieving what we would like to have in life. And when we are too much stuck in the third position, we are pretty much detached from all the emotions, not only ours, but from anybody else's. And we can come across as really, really cold person, that
Mm.
we lack humanity in our approach and in our conversations. So once we have that um, understanding, we can we can use it when we are dealing with difficult people, because it's not the people who are difficult. Yeah, we can't change them, but the way we see them
Mm.
is something that we can change. We can change that perception. It's completely okay if they are difficult, but the way we create internal representation of them,
Mm.
this is something that we can influence with our perceptual positions to have access to more information and create that internal change that will help us to respond in a more resourceful way when it comes to dealing with difficult people or difficult situations.
Milan, this is incredibly helpful. I was taking a bunch of notes as I usually do when you're sharing. Yeah,
Mhm.
and I was thinking of a few ways that this could help the brothers in the program. And the first thing that came to mind is, this week I was on a couple of calls where brothers were talking about issues they had with family. Sometimes, I was reading a book and it was a spiritual book. And the guy said, if somebody claims they're enlightened, an enlightened being spiritually, he's like, have them spend 1 week with their family and then watch how enlightened they are.
Yeah.
All this to say that our family really knows how to trigger us. And sometimes you hear people say, like, my mother, my father, my sister, whoever, they're
Mhm.
just always the same. They see me from this same perspective. And I
Mhm.
think it would be very helpful if we were to put ourselves in our family's shoes, because not only do we, and not only has our family been with us for the longest period of time, but we also know a little bit of their history. We were probably raised similarly. So you could put yourself in, let's say, your brother's shoes or your
Mhm.
mother's shoes or your father's shoes and go like, well, my father was raised in this way, right? So I can see why he feels this way about money, or this way about the person I'm going to get married to, or this way about my lifestyle, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And then when it comes to, like, let's say the second one, which was others, like
Mhm.
seeing things from the perspective of others, I find it very interesting, a lot of brothers listening to this, that I see men do this with attractive women. So men will see an attractive woman and they will, like, let's say they're single and they want to talk to her, but they're experiencing some social anxiety. They start assuming what the woman is thinking. So they'll think, oh, she's on her phone right now. So if I spoke to her, she would just be like, I'm not interested. Or she would probably see me approaching her as a very unattractive man. And she's probably it. So sometimes it seems, Milan, that our perceptual position can be skewed. What do you have to say about it, about getting like an accurate, accurate perceptual position?
Well, we do need to know that person just a little bit in order
Mm,
to get more precise information. It's very useful if we already had a conversation with someone, and then we replay that conversation in our mind, and then
mm,
we can get a little bit more knowledge, a little bit more understanding what is really going on. I can really actually tell you a really useful exercise that all the brothers can use, and
okay,
how
go
we
ahead.
can use perceptual positions for their advantage and to grow. So the first thing is to, of course, be in the first position. You can think about that person. It can be a lady or maybe somebody you're having difficulties with, and so on. It can be a
Okay,
parent, brother, mother, father, doesn't matter.
all right.
And really, really think about what was happening, what you were saying, what you were hearing, and so on. Notice what you're hearing, seeing, feeling, noticing, and so on. Once you have enough information, people should do their best to leave that kind of body, leave all the experience inside that body, and
Okay.
float into that other person's shoes and notice what is happening from their perspective. So notice what they are seeing, hearing, feeling, and noticing, what they are believing about the you in the first position, how they are seeing you, and so on, really
Mm,
seeing you. Once you have all of this information, then is the time to again leave it behind you in the second position and then
okay.
go to that bird's point of view on equal distance and really observe what is happening in that conversation. Now, here is where the magic happens. You start noticing patterns. You start noticing different beliefs about yourself in the first position, beliefs that you have about that second person, the whole dynamic of your conversation, and so on. Once you are able to being detached and observe objectively what is going on there, you're going to receive a lot of knowledge. You can ask yourself questions like, what is there for me to learn from this situation? What kind of advice would I give now when I have all the information to myself in the first position? And how
Mhm.
can I do things in a better way? Once that is clear, when you have all the answers, you return back to your own first position through your own eyes with all this knowledge. I guarantee you, your situation, the situation you were in, has to be different. The point of view will be changed, the perception will be changed because you have now lots and lots of information that were not there before when you were perhaps making a decision to stay angry with that person or not to approach that person or pretty much anything that was limiting you in some way and not allowing you to grow.
Milan, thank you for sharing. That's actually a very powerful exercise. So, if I'm hearing this correct, I won't go through it, but it sounds like you take time in a situation where there's a lot of conflict to cycle through each of the positions. So you start from yours, then you take the time to see it from the others, then you go into the sort of the third position, which is more of a bird's eye point of view. Um, this sounds like it could be so useful. First of all, for men who are dealing with an out of control behavior, but just in general for our lives as we improve ourselves as we go through the reboot process. So, what would be the benefits of? And I know you're an expert in this area. What would be the benefits of training in perception to a high level? And before I go further, gentlemen, those of you listening to this, one of the things that Milan and I believe in is skills, right? So Milan is skilled at what he does. I'm skilled at what I do, but we pick certain aspects and we become better and better at them. You can use certain things as tools, but when you find the tools that work for you, you have the opportunity to train yourself till you can get to the point of mastery. I feel that this is something that can be trained to a high level. What are your thoughts on that? And is that possible? What would it look like if that's the case?
Everything is possible. I'm a mindset coach.
In Milan, everything is possible. That's awesome.
Everything is possible. No limits at all. Yes, when we master perceptual position, well, we have that access to new information, especially when it comes to relationships. We are able to tap into resources and react in a more resourceful way when it comes to dealing with difficult people or just understanding social interactions in a better way. And also, we become more self aware when we are able to cycle through all of these perceptual positions. There are researches that show that managers who are usually in third position, when they are able to be more self-aware, to be in the first position and to have empathy in the second position, they are making much greater results when it comes to their work. So having that flexibility to move from the first, second, third position and go back to the first position with all this knowledge is a way of creating wisdom. So if you are wise, if you are making decisions, wise decisions every day, every minute, well, you can just imagine how your life is going to look like,
This
right?
is awesome. Yeah, I'm thinking about how in my previous career, when I was running a sales organization, I think we did use aspects of this, but I never, truly developed it to a high level. and to hear how much it can help somebody, especially if you're working with a lot of people. I see that as something that's very powerful. And now, Milan, I finally know your secrets to being a great coach, because Milan coaches a lot of brothers within our program. And now I see one of the things that he does. Slowly, he's revealing it. If you're using this and you're putting yourself in the shoes of the client, and then you're looking at both of you from a bird's eye view, then you're able to get a deeper understanding of what's going on in that situation. And I can imagine that when you do this for years, in whatever you're doing, brothers, whether it's in your reboot, in relating to your family, in running a company, in being in your career, in working with clients, you become quite good at it.
Yes, it becomes automatic, pretty much like any other skill. The more you practice it, the more you focus on it, it becomes automatic. Our mind is a powerful tool. It learns very quickly. It takes, dozen times just to repeat it, and it's there. It's part of you. You don't even think about it. You just do it, have a free flow.
All right, excellent. Well, Milan, thank you again so much for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you for
Um,
sharing.
yeah, it's always great to have you. Always is a pleasure. Gentlemen, if you are enjoying this series that I have with Milan, there's a lot of teaching. He shares exercises, but it's just the tip of the iceberg, as you know. Within the program, he works with men on any limiting beliefs that they may have. It doesn't matter how deep it is. He has exercises. He has the expertise to work with you through those. And you might be wondering, if you are maybe new to this channel or you're new to the podcast, you might be wondering, like, well, what would be the point of this? Well, as you go through the reboot process, you're not just trying to end your out of control behavior. As you gain clarity, as you let go of this behavior, you begin to realize that there are many parts of your life that atrophied. There are many things in your life that you lost. There are many behaviors that you realize, oh man, I didn't develop this skill. But if you're in your 30s, you're in your 40s, you're in your late 20s, you may not know how to develop it. And they don't teach this in school. You can pick up a book, but are you going to read a book on perception? No, you're not. So you have the opportunity to actually sit down with somebody who can work with you through these limiting beliefs. And as you go through the program for a year, you also are able to pick certain skills, like Milan. How are you good at this? How do I become good at this? And you have a year-long period to work with him. So brothers can work with Milan one-on-one within the Porn Reboot Intensive program, but you can also work with him in a small group weekly on Zoom if you are a member of the implementation program. So that's all I have for you guys today. Milan, thank you again for joining us. I'm JK, your brother in this struggle. Thank you so much, and I will see you later on in the week. Take care,
Take
guys.
care, guys.